Call me if you need a little larger. I believe I can help.
Just don't button a button and let the melt one more notch.
Sit around the house in your sweats.
If I can't get the zipper zipped, I'm staying home. Don't go anywhere with that.
Yeah,
It's just like Frank when everybody loves Raymond.
I still watch that.
See you back there, I was like, what the hell is this pillar talking about? Oh, that's LV.
LV.
Yeah. You know, I think I could have watched that show more if it was just their mom and dad.
Yeah.
Raymond's voice was too nasally for me. His wife was kind of a
Yeah.
bitch. Mark usually asks stuff on Mondays. How did we get this at 9 o'clock today?
I don't know.
I'll bet he's not on beer till 9:30. She's usually got a conference call or something with that other girl.
No, I hear him.
There it is.
Oh.
That's
Guys,
it.
see, start talking bad about him, he'll show up.
That's the case, he'd be here all the time.
Who was that?
How did the Chiefs do yesterday? Oh, sorry about your Packers too, Jeff, bro. Not really.
No, their season got toasted.
At least y'all got an excuse.
We got a good excuse.
Well, I do too, because we got an owner that's an idiot. No, Mark.
Sorry I'm late.
You got to buy first round. No, it works.
Ready, Betty?
I am.
Call a commission order. We have any minutes or reports?
I do have the county clerk's fees for November 13th was filed.
So good. Any announcements, upcoming meetings or events, and/or commissioner committee liaison reports?
Got Region Board of Governors tonight.
Yep, I'll be there too.
December luncheon at the health department on Wednesday.
And we have the Central Missouri Legislative Caucus meeting Wednesday night. I don't know.
I'm not going to make that.
I now have a conflict. I was planning on making it. But I guess that's the nature of the business. We've got a meeting to talk about the Lafayette enhancements this afternoon. Forgot about that. CT Central Bank Government receptions tomorrow night. You guys going?
Yes.
Okay.
Going maybe.
Going maybe?
Yeah, most definitely possible.
Leadership is Friday, isn't it?
Do we do December?
No, it's next Friday. I
Okay.
believe. I believe it's 13th, isn't it?
Then I've got it wrong.
Oh, do you?
I'll put
No.
it on this week.
I won't.
I've got it for Friday.
Nope, you're right. Friday. My bad.
Christmas party Friday night.
Yeah. I have my Christmas party Friday night, too. Hey, what's the story on that,
See what I did
Larry?
there?
What's the story on that?
Right now, last week, I don't know whether or not we're right on that line. We might see just flurries, or might see some accumulation, but it's too far out yet.
And that's... What about Thursday? I heard they're talking about Thursday.
Thursday night, I think mainly Thursday night and Friday morning is what they're talking.
Oh, okay, so Thursday night. I had heard Thursday day, so...
Ours actually said it's supposed to be dry Friday. They're still, it's still out over the ocean yet, so.
Yeah, a little ways to go, huh?
Yep.
All right. What day is today? The 2nd. All right. Come on, computer. Can't get my silly thing to work here. Debbie, I'm blaming this all on you. I
First
hope you know
thing is
that.
the West Edgewood Drive traffic
I know that's
study.
what we're trying to get to. I'm trying to see what else we got on here, if there's anything else. That will take some time. Nope, okay. You're up. West Edgewood Drive.
All right. David Bangy from the city is here to talk about this. But the city's entering into an agreement with George Butler Associates. I think they signed that tonight, right?
Well, the council meeting's been put off till tomorrow.
Oh, it has. Okay. But you had mentioned
Oh.
having them come up and
Yep.
just give a summary of what they're doing, and I'll turn it over to David and let him
Sure.
elaborate on it.
Yeah, we've got a scope worked out with George Butler. Basically, we're having them handle basically all of the work except for some of the traffic counts, which the city has actually already completed. We put some counters out. I don't know if you've driven through the area, I think last week. Actually, it was the week before last. We had the counters out in 8 different places, counting traffic for a week. Basically, just kind of set up a baseline traffic so that they can then take that number and, calculate the peak times and do some more in-depth traffic counting. But essentially, I think given the amount of interest that we've seemed to have generated from the folks out there along Frog Hollow in the Fanewood subdivision, we've got, I think a decent amount of public input and public presentation time built into the contract. So hopefully, if we stumble against some other issues with those folks, we'll have plenty enough in the contract to be able to have enough public meetings to get those people the input that they need. But other than that, I don't really know if there's anything particularly significant that we want to talk about. But basically, the study corridor is essentially from 179 up to Stadium, and including the intersections at both ends. I don't know if you had any particular questions you wanted to ask. I could try to answer those, but that's kind of it in a nutshell. The work, I think they're planning on taking perhaps about 3 months to complete the work. Hopefully, we're going to be showing it to the council probably sometime in February or March.
And that's just the study.
That's just the study.
So how long after that is it before we can actually start talking about doing something?
Well, I guess it kind of depends on how the cash flow goes between the city and county folks. Ultimately, the city is a little more short-staffed than we used to be. We've lost 3 positions out of our engineering division. So most likely, it would have to be something that's consulted out again if there is something that we would like to see built there. So that's a little different than what we were hoping, I think, when we kind of entered into this 3 months ago. But, so the turnaround time for that is, several months to get a consultant on board. I would have to imagine there wouldn't be anything built before 15.
You mean starting construction in 15?
Correct.
What's the timeline on the Frog Hollow project?
It, to go back and check our time and all that, we're going to open bids second week of January or third week of January.
I think it's the 17th of January, I think, is the bid opening day.
And I'll have to backtrack that for our bid notice, but we'll be bidding through January.
And then what's the construction schedule look like for that?
Completion date would be, I haven't looked at the documents lately, end of September.
Right, I think they anticipate the end of September, although I think that the time frame that they've given them is, or that we're anticipating, is generous.
Yeah.
So I would have to think that the contractors.
I guess where I'm going with that is, if that's going to be under construction, that's going to affect the traffic flow through that area. So, how can we do an accurate traffic study if we're having construction on Frog Hollow that's going to detour a lot of other people?
I think they would get the traffic counts early before
Right.
construction starts.
Right, I think we're anticipating that the council is going to approve this tomorrow night. And, I think then George Butler would like to try to get that traffic count done before we really see a lot of traffic patterns differing because of Christmas, et cetera. So I would assume that they try to get those done within the next couple of weeks, which would be in advance of any construction.
And you've already had some counters out.
Correct.
But intersection counts you haven't done.
Correct.
Yeah.
The turning movement counts at the intersections.
I don't really know a whole lot about this, but it was about 50,000, wasn't it? This contract with
Contract, yes.
it seems like an awful lot to do a traffic study, but I haven't been familiar with a lot of that
Right.
stuff. So
We were anticipating somewhere in the neighborhood of about 35, I think, is what we were sort of pulled out of a hat when we were talking about this back several months ago. But I think part of if you look at the numbers that they gave us, there's a lot of public participation dollars in there. So, and that's something that we can potentially use if we come up with solutions that the public really seems to have some issue with, or not. You know, so in some ways, the contract, we might end up paying less for it, depending on what we kind of do with some of those public participation numbers.
What about existing data that's been, let's see, was it Stone Ridge, whatever that development is? I know they've done some traffic studies on the same areas. Are we incorporating those into this? Same contract, same contractor?
Right.
You
so
know, one
George-
time we'd said if we kind of used the same folks that did their work, it would potentially make it more expeditious and less expensive. What happened to that concept?
Well, it might still be more expeditious, less expensive. You know, I'm not for sure if we're seeing less expensive or not. I don't. You know, it's
Was Butler the same one that did the
George
work?
Butler is
Okay.
the one that's doing the Stone Ridge
Okay.
development.
They're also the ones that did the study out on 179 too.
Okay. So at least we have some people that have some expertise in that area.
Correct. And they should be the ones that are most familiar with the numbers. You know, and they have CMPS working with them. You know, and CMPS is the site designer for the Stone Ridge development. So, I mean, I think we have the best people in terms of folks who should have the knowledge of what's supposed to happen there, and so hopefully generate a better traffic numbers coming out of that future development than someone else might.
And the reason that we're looking at this is to try to possibly realign stadium. I mean, that's some of the
Right,
stuff
that was
I've
a
heard.
possibility,
Okay.
or one of the designs that was sort of thrown out there was to take stadium and sort of swing it around and tie it into Stone Ridge or Creek Trail. You know, that may or may not happen, but that was one of the ideas that was tossed out. I mean, the other ideas that we tossed out originally was, you know, perhaps the intersection of Stadium and Edgewood would become, you know, a large 2-lane roundabout, perhaps. The question then kind of became, you know, originally we'd always thought that we would try to take Stone Ridge, which is the road that comes past Coles, and sort of swing it around and make it tie into Creek Trail. You know, kind of with the path that we're going down now, we're assuming that that's probably not going to happen, that we'll probably let Stone Ridge, you know, come out and hit Edgewood, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think it's the Veterans, you know, just below the car wash there on Edgewood. And then the street that comes in front of Menards, I've forgotten the name of it, Creek, I forget.
Hard Rock Drive or something.
Yeah, well, Hard Rock is the one that runs east-west. This was
Stone
runs
Creek.
north-south, Stony Creek or something.
Stone Creek Drive.
That might come down and tie into Frog Hollow, and that would become kind of a minor intersection as opposed to, you know, what Stone Ridge might be, and or what we might do at Stadium. But and some of that could be, you know, driven by what the development might be on that corner. You know, the corner of Edgewood and Stadium at the moment. You know, it's right now it's about a 7-acre tract, maybe 9-acre tract. You know, and would it develop more easily with a road down the middle, or would it develop more easily with just the road where it is and some sort of big box goes in there? So, you know, so those are some unknowns.
Thought process behind this was we're going to do Frog Hollow.
Correct.
And that project, as it got re-engineered, became a whole lot more expensive than it started. So if we're going to spend that kind of money, which we've kind of already committed to doing the project, we ought to make sure we spend it in a smart manner and solve problems long term.
Correct.
As opposed to making the short term immediate fix and then coming back 5 years from now in the next cycle going, oh, we need to re-engineer the whole area because we didn't anticipate the traffic flows.
Right.
Doesn't mean we would realign Stadium. Doesn't mean we wouldn't realign Stadium. It just means we're going to look at it now as opposed to spending $3.5 million and coming back in 5 to 7 years going, we need another $3.5 million.
Right, I think that's very true. Certainly, I think there was the anticipation that if we were to do Frog Hollow the way it had been designed up until several months ago, that we would still come back and look to try to do something at Stadium and Edgewood. You know, rebuilding Frog Hollow wouldn't have corrected anything there. So this kind of provides the opportunity to sort of dumb down, if you want to say, the Frog Hollow piece so that there's some additional money to actually, you know, work on what could be a bigger traffic snarl at Stadium and Edgewood.
I guess one of my concerns is that I mean, I'm all for moving this forward, but at the same time, I got to think that with Sam's Club coming in and the farmers doing more development with their quarry, and then their quarry's going to move at some point. I think we all know that more development's going to mean more traffic, and so are we? I guess I'm just afraid that maybe we're jumping the gun, and now all of a sudden our traffic study's not going to be a whole lot of good once more development comes into that area.
Modeling that GBA does, they talk to the developers, to the farmers, and what their vision is for it, and they actually model into the additional traffic. So if anything, Chris, we'd probably be getting ahead of the game than being behind. Once it's already built, and then trying to build with all the additional traffic, is we get it built before it's done, and then they can bring in, as they're doing, they're slowly bringing businesses in there. We get ahead of it and not be behind the cart, or having the horse behind the cart.
And that was part of when we pulled the maps up and looked at them. Part of this was the way Stone Creek, Stone Ridge, whatever the drive, the street was supposed to come into Edgewood, was potentially going to create more of a problem. The way, and I don't know if it was the initial alignment or whether it was the planning department's preferred new alignment or what it was, but it was going to create actually more problems because it was going to dump in right almost exactly between Frog Hollow and Creek Trail, which would put 3 streets coming in on, within a block of Stadium.
Right.
So in looking at it, we thought that we probably ought to start gaming this out, because if that's the right place for it, we need to figure out how to adjust to the traffic. And I was thinking that was after they had re-engineered it, because originally it wasn't going to come in there, and somebody had said, why not bring it? I mean, it was...
Right.
It's too many people. It's people over here talking, and people over here talking, and people over here talking, but nobody getting together and talk about it. And we thought maybe this is a way to pull everything together and try to have a global fix for the long term in that area, as opposed to a short-term fix that then when they put in the development creates another problem, which then creates another cost. And
right, and there's been several iterations, as we started the whole Mission Drive discussion with the hospital and how that road was going to lay in there, and then sort of trying to master plan, how the roads would tie up, to the roundabout. Because if you remember, I think originally when MoDOT was going to be putting money into the interchange, there was discussion of, there has to be connections. This road has to connect somewhere. And so, that's kind of where this master plan was coming from, is, if we're going to have to build these roads to connect in order to get this interchange built, where would those roads be? And then sort of as that conversation continued, then MoDOT sort of backed off it has to actually connect to, we just need to show it's going to connect. So those roads didn't really get built, and of course then the school district bought the property there, just to the north of Mission Drive, and that sort of changed the game again. So it has been kind of a moving target, and then as the Stone Ridge development happens with now Sam's Club coming in, and I'm assuming that there's thoughts of there other big box stores that could potentially go in there too, so it's been a kind of a long process, and I think Larry's right that that the traffic study that we're going to have GBA do for us is going to take into account all that area, and they're going to be assigning traffic, commercial traffic to the Stone Ridge area. What would the high school over there be, or some other traffic generator, and include all those numbers in what they're proposing the solution to be.
What we don't want to do is, like Mark said earlier, we don't want to try and design something in Stadium, because what we do right up the road, the fact that if you have an intersection, that's a problem we've got right now. Creek Trail is too close to Stadium to be able to effectively do anything. If you stop lights and there's not enough room to stack traffic the way it is currently, and this will give us some basis to move forward with the whole area.
Is there plans, I guess, to extend or to take the road up to Mission from Frog Hollow and Creek Trail there? I mean, is that long range?
Right. Part of the agreement that the city is working out with the school district is that essentially the school district would donate the right-of-way necessary to take the road basically from where Creek Trail ends today and and bring it up along their property line, kind of the back of those triplexes, and bring it up into one of the legs of the roundabout. And so there would be a connection then between Creek Trail and the Mission Drive roundabout.
It just seems like that would help traffic a lot if there was another outlet for a lot of that traffic off Creek Trail or Frog Hollow to get onto 179. And
Right, I think, certainly that, and then also, I think it does provide a nice access for the folks that live like in Yorktown and Plymouth Rock and that area back in there, to get into town too. I mean, so I think it would be certainly a nice connection when that happens. And so, a time frame for that, I don't know if that's really been set in stone. I guess it kind of depends on, how the school district moves forward with whatever plans they come to. But the agreement that the city has with the school district is that they would donate the right of way for that street.
I guess I've asked enough questions. Jeff, you got anything?
I don't know. It's a sore subject because we did all this re-engineering, and first time I heard about it was at the MoDOT meeting, so that one was kind of surprised. So I guess I got questions on the study. Are we going to assume that there's going to be a new high school going in there? Are we going to do two different studies with the assumptions of a new high school and one without it? Because I think that's going to make a ton of difference.
I think from what the school district has told us is that the intention would be that there will be a school there of some sort. Now, whether it will be the high school or another high school, I think that's still up in the air and up to the voters to decide. But
Crystal ball.
That's right. So it seems as if there's going to be something there, and ultimately, if it comes to pass that that nothing happens there, I mean, ultimately, I would have to assume that the school district is going to try to unload that property. I don't know what might lead that to happen, but certainly, that property is, when we're finished, is going to be somewhat desirable, I would have to think, even if it's not a school. And so, it's probably some of the conversation that we need to have with GBA as they start assigning traffic, generation. What would this look like if it were a school, or what would it look like if it, is commercial down in the flat area and residential up kind of on the hill. What different types of traffic would that generate? And would what we're proposing as a solution, accommodate either or both of those possible situations?
Eventually, something's going to happen up there.
Right. I've had
one way or another. I mean, we know that.
But there's a difference between having a school there and commercial, because the school is going to be your 7:30 traffic's going to be crazy, and your 3 o'clock traffic.
Right. And it's probably the 3 o'clock traffic we're probably not so worried about, because generally that's peaking when other things aren't peaking, and so that traffic should be able to be handled relatively easily. The morning traffic obviously is something that they could compound the problem in the morning. They also have special events, football games, et cetera, but generally that's all off-peak traffic, and so it's not the big of a deal. But certainly the morning peak could be increased dramatically if there's a school there.
And then the other question, I guess, and maybe that's not for you all, more for us, this project started at, $2.3 million, and that was for fixing Frog Hollow.
Well,
And
actually,
now
it
we're-
started at 900 and something thousand to
Right.
fix that bridge. That's all we were.
But now we have more culverts, we're moving utilities, and, is our agreement still 50%, and then do we have a ceiling for what we're going to give to this project?
It's all part of the 5.5 that we put up. That the city matches with 5.5 on these joint projects. Since Wildwood's pretty much come off the table, that frees up 3 or 3.2. I can't remember what we had in the budget for it
Total.
So, it's really more of just a reallocation of the Wildwood money to something that can go and makes sense to go. It's not at this point until we have a traffic study, until we have an idea what we're actually going to do or not do. It's kind of hard to know what the cost will be. We know that the last concept of realignment of Frog Hollow and Creek Trail was going to be $3+ million, and it just strikes me that, and I'm part of the instigator behind this. I'll be upfront and honest, but it strikes me if you're going to spend that kind of money, you better make sure you do it right, as opposed to just spending money to spend money. And I kind of got the impression, no offense to any of the engineering folks, but we got to a point where, we were going to do it, and it didn't really matter what it cost, and we were going to get it done, and we had to spend the money, and that's not the situation we want to be in. I think we want to be in a situation where we have a global fix, and the resources aren't going to be any bigger in the future, so we got to be a lot smarter how we spend them now. Because if we end up doing something that's a short-term fix, we got to come back a cycle or two later to fix it again. That takes away from other projects that could potentially be done that would have an advantage in the future.
That's part of the question with the school, though, and future development down there to make sure that it is done right. But or how much are we going to throw at it now? Because that price could be up to $5 million by the time we're done with it.
Well, and there's a limit. I mean, the problem is we're operating in an area where we don't have enough information, which is the reason to get the traffic study. Without that, we can start guesstimating what we want to do, and I think that would, I think what we're talking about here is spending a relatively small amount of money to get answers that could potentially save us a lot of money going down the line.
They're going to be guesstimating too, though, is what it amounts to. So we can.
But there's more of an educated guess. It's based on projections. They actually go in and model the area. I think they're still using the same.
Right.
It'll give us an accurate picture of the traffic. The work when we've done these more comprehensive traffic studies, we've gotten good numbers and they've been reliable. And we're projecting out, I would assume, at least 20 years, if not maybe more.
But I'm not disagreeing with theirs being a much higher educated guess than what my educated guess would be. But I'm just struggling with knowing what all. We got a lot of different stuff that is questionable. If Stone Ridge comes out and where they come out there at the quarry.
But it gives the city more force to be able to direct where it comes out. I think where Stone Ridge was coming out originally was at the direction at the city. They wanted to connect in there at Frog Hollow, so that'd be a major thoroughfare. With the development that's going on, I think this will give them more basis to be able to require where they connect in. It's not just they just can't connect where they want to. They've got to have reasons to be able to do it.
Part of it is the preliminary talks of shutting down Frog Hollow, dead ending it there, and making it there's only one road coming through. I'm just struggling with that, and so
I completely understand.
Go ahead with the road study, and I think it's a good project. I just think there's a whole lot of questions.
There's a whole lot of questions, and the crystal ball is always clearer in hindsight than it is.
Well, once we pull the trigger, we just got to go with it. You can't look back and go, what if, because it's too late at that point. If it's learning curve, then that's fine. But, our projects have turned out really good. The cooperative projects have been wonderful. So I'm going to second guess you now instead of later.
I know. And GBA's done a lot of work for us. We used them out there on Business 50 and a lot of traffic studies out there. I think they were consulted on even East McCarty on some of that. So it's not like we're bringing in somebody completely new. GBA's done a lot of work around Jeff City, and I think it's needed. My personal opinion, I think it's needed to give us a comprehensive plan that we can look forward and use for a number of years to go forward with our development.
Well, I'm not saying we don't have money, because right now at MSP we got money that's. I'm going to venture to say, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it's not going to be spent. That was an educated guess. There. Pretty fair to say. So
HOELSCHER.
No, I definitely don't disagree. If we're going to do it, let's do it right. But I'm just.
I know.
And we can get this traffic study back, and we may go and say it doesn't make any sense to do anything more to this.
Yep.
Put the bridge in. Don't put the bridge. Make the change we're doing now. Walk away. That may be the best option.
Right, and part of what they're supposed to give to us is basically a phasing plan. Is this something that we need to do 2 years from now? Next summer, 10 years from now? Are there certain triggers that go off if something happens inside the quarry or if the school gets built? So I think we can kind of look at those things too, once the study is done, kind of gauge what we might need to do at what time.
I'm good with doing the study. And David, I want to thank you for coming up and just having this conversation. I think it's good to bounce stuff off the walls, and hopefully, the city and us will continue to have these conversations and be open about the whole project. So,
Agreed.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
we need to vote this, or
I don't think we have to vote it, do we?
It was more of an informational update.
Right.
Put
You guys
Maggie
are
up against
you
the
guys are
wall.
paying the bill to start with, and then
Correct.
it goes into the whole Frog Hollow pot.
okay.
So, all right.
All right.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it. Approval of agreement for our engineering services structures maintenance program. I have a little bitty one pager. Is this it? This is everything. I need everything. Thank you.
You get the full sheet. We get the abbreviated version.
We've been talking about
Let's
doing
see what we got here.
setting up a bridge maintenance program for several years now, and it's always been something that we've kind of put off, hadn't had time to really work on it. We don't have a lot of expertise in bridges, structures in general, and so we've been talking to some different engineering companies over the past couple of years, and we kind of narrowed it down to working with Volkert. And I'd like to introduce Carl Callahan. He's one of the engineers with Volkert. It's
Jill looked at this. It's Jill.
it's a nationwide firm with an
Oh,
office
it's
here in
hard.
Jefferson City, just down the road on High Street. This contract's for $15,000, and I gave you a scope of what we're going to do, and it's basically identifying, going through the inspection reports from MoDOT on the bridges that they inspect for us. It's about 96 bridges, give or take. Going through that, prioritizing for preventive maintenance type things that we need to be doing on our bridges. And when I say bridges, I also mean box culverts, any type of structure greater than 20 feet span in length. And so anyway, we narrowed it down to working with Volkert. And I do have a contract there for you. It's an agreement for professional engineering services. It's a not to exceed amount of $15,000, and basically we're going to set up a program that we can do every year, or something we can follow.
Road and bridge funds.
Actually, it's sales tax.
It's sales tax under our bridge maintenance. We had that set up in sales tax to where we had a bridge maintenance fund. What we're going to be able to get out of this is a schedule. What Larry wants is to be able to have a list, so, whether it's on a 5-year schedule or what, that we can put someone in charge of it out there, and that's going to be part of their annual appraisal, is going out, getting this work done, whether it's washing the bearings out every spring, resealing the deck so we don't have infiltration of the water and salt into the top, that type of deal is where we can get it set up on a schedule. As you all know, our staff is short. Eric and myself are the only engineers we have. Carl formerly was with MoDOT. He was I guess at one time you were over the whole state on bridges. Larry and I got to know him is when he was in District 5. Him and his crew, they came out one day when we were doing repairs. They worked with our crews and showed us how to make the repairs, based on experience that MoDOT's had. Carl's been very good. We're also working with Don Hillis, who just recently retired from MoDOT. Again, he's got a vast knowledge of bridges and structures through his work and history with MoDOT. What we're trying to do is just get like I said, a schedule set up that we know in 2014 we need to hit these bridges. We don't necessarily want to do the worst first. We want them, if we got good structures, we want to keep them good. Through the sales tax, we've got our bridge system up and pretty decent shape. Then we want to keep it that way. We just don't have the time, and it's easy for me and Eric to say, Larry, well, you need to go out and do this. If we give them a schedule, Larry can assign somebody to it, and that's part of their job duties, is make sure it's done so we don't get it at the end of the year. We didn't get anything done on the bridges again. You know, somebody's assigned to it. We'll get the work done, and that's what we want to do.
Seems like a good program to me. I mean, the more we take care of it, the longer it's going to last, and less it's going to cost us to repair them.
Yeah.
The deck sealing, I mean, is that something that will last for 5 years with the snowplows hitting them and stuff, or?
It's more of a infiltrates into the concrete. It doesn't
So it
really sort of sit on
soaks
top.
in.
Yeah, there's different.
It's not a
levels of
surface.
sealer.
We've been working.
How much money you want to spend?
that was my.
Well, here's the budget, and I can tell you how much is in there, and it ain't going over that amount. Promise you.
We know that.
That was
You know,
one of my
Carl-
other questions. Is what do you anticipate yearly
We
cost?
have $25,000 that we've kind of put in our yearly budget for bridge maintenance.
Okay.
Last year, we bought some sealer, did some things here and there. It was kind of hit and miss. We got MoDOT out there to kind of give us some idea of what we need to do and spend a couple thousand tops. It's going to be more or less the $15,000 will eat up, most of next year's budget. The rest will be put into materials. Except for rare circumstances, we'll probably do everything ourselves. There may be some.
Which line is this under? In the budget.
Under 9054, 908.
908 bridge construction. The one we have $650,000 budgeted for.
This is just.
A portion
No, I
of
understand
it.
that. I mean,
Yeah, but we've got Liberty Road in the bridge design out
and when
there.
are we doing that?
We're gonna start the design next year. We got stormwater work in there.
There's stormwater.
We're gonna have enough to be able to do all that
Oh, yeah,
stuff next
yeah.
year. It's stay within the budget. Okay.
Yeah.
And you got any money
Actually,
for that
let
BRO
me back
bridge
up.
or something too?
I said I made a mistake. The money will actually come out of this year's budget. The 25 that we had budgeted for this
Okay.
year. So next year we'll actually have 25,000. That's why we wanted to get it in this year.
We have 25,000 in what, bridge maintenance? That's what it's called.
Well, again, with the budget the way it is, the auditor's office doesn't like breaking it out. It's in there. On our worksheets, we show it.
Okay.
But they just don't like adding another
I know new items.
new line item. So,
Is 25,000 an adequate amount? I mean, I'm
again, we don't know. This
just a guess.
In this current sales tax, we
One of Jeff's educated guess.
yeah.
Swag.
Yeah, this was a swag when we pulled that number out.
Well,
Along those
kinda-
lines.
We made the assumption that we do all the work ourselves.
So
all
just
the
materials,
preventive maintenance
basically.
Yeah.
stuff. It's more or less the same thing we're doing on our roads, preventive maintenance, just on bridges. The same type of.
And what it'll give us also with the, in 2016, we've got to have another sales tax extension. That'll give us some basis there that we can use this to carry forward with, just to show where the money's going.
That's what I was gonna go along those lines. I mean, just looking at a 5-year plan, I think we need to look at a long-term, 10, 15, 25, 50. And if we need to start putting more into the sales tax, I mean, we don't have as many gravel roads that are gonna qualify to be updated. Do we need to
Right.
take some of that and start fixing some bridges now before they all have to be fixed at one
Right.
time? And then we're gonna be really pulling stuff out.
Most of
here.
our structures, like I said, the sales tax started close to 30 years, getting close to 30 years ago, most of our bridges are in real good shape. What we're trying to get to is the point, we get an inspection every 2 years from MoDOT. They do that for us. Is the issues, maybe brush ups, up in the stream channel that needs to be cut. There may be, bearings underneath the bridge that need to be washed or readjusted. That's what we're trying to get to, is get a schedule. As far as new structures, there's probably going to be some box culverts here and there, but most of our bridges should be good for.
Well, what we're trying to prevent is like the Tanner Bridge where the deck went too far before we
Right.
got to do anything to it, and then it cost us a lot of money.
That's what I was thinking.
And that's what we're trying to not have.
Okay, so you're gonna try to
happen.
eliminate that risk and then,
Well, we're trying to get a schedule where we're doing stuff. Like we've talked before, we're trying to get things set
Bless
up.
you.
At some point, Larry and I are going to be of retirement age and want to retire.
not while we're up here.
Yeah, I know. But we want to be able to have a schedule. We want a program set up to where once we're gone, that there's still an impetus to
That's-
do the work.
That's where I'm at too, and I think these two probably agree that, even though we're gonna be gone, we don't wanna leave it in bad shape.
We want to leave it in
Be
better
planning
shape
for
than
the
when
future.
we came, and that's what Larry, we've been, like I've told you before, we're looking at people within our organization, trying to get them brought up to speed to be able to step into it, in succession planning, so.
You guys got to work for another 30 years. Come on.
It's not 80 and out, it's 80.
yeah, there ain't no. We got to change that.
We can pat the prior commissions on the back for getting us in good budgetary we're in good shape, really. And that's why I'd like to keep it going, even
Capital
if we
improvement
hit a
sales
hiccup.
tax has been a godsend for the infrastructure in this community, and that's the real
If we
that's the
can
real thing.
keep from having something hit us real hard in the future.
Well, I think, again, with all sales tax initiatives, I think the next one's probably going to be the toughest one we had, except when it's passed the first time. We need to have our ducks in a row and have good programs set up and show the people where we're going to take the money and spend it. So.
Agreed. All right. Any other
Good.
questions on this?
No.
I entertain a motion to approve the contract.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Call roll, please.
Chris?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Yes. By roll call vote, contract's approved. Thanks for putting up with all our
Thanks, Carl.
opining
What I bring to the table
discussion.
is just an extra set of eyes with a little bit more experience. And what I hope to part, when done, is a written process. Because you never know who's going to be on staff, but if you have it in writing, it can be followed. It can always be changed.
Sure.
It can be tweaked to do what you want it to do, because conditions change, funds change, everything else. The other thing I like to do is maybe impart a little bit of a maintenance type attitude, long-term maintenance. And for me, a maintenance plan starts at almost birth, in the fact that it starts with the design of what you're wanting to build. And one of the things that we never did it as a state, but I've talked to states who have done it, is start with, okay, how do I design this bridge to reduce maintenance in the future?
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a bridge that's right down the road from a quarry, maybe you don't want an 8-inch deck on it, maybe you want a 10-inch deck on it. You're gonna pay more up front, but it's gonna save you money
In the end.
down the road. Those type of things. And Lord help you, if you can get a bridge there that don't have a joint on it, you better take it.
Amen.
Unless it's a beer joint.
Like him. He's buying the first round.
You want to go on inspection?
I'm thinking so. About 4:30.
I'm thinking that's a really bad idea to let Jeff go alone.
You just call me when we're done, and we'll have the
closeout.
marketing research meeting after
There you
You
go.
can handle that.
safety meeting.
It would not be perfect. I don't want to go ahead and say
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Thank you all. All right. Do we have anything else before we go into closed session? Going once, going twice. I'd entertain a motion to go into closed session pursuant to 610-021 sub 3 to deal with personnel matters.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Would you call the roll, please, Miss Betty?
Chris?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Bye.
Mark?
Yes, by a roll call vote. Motion's approved. We'll go into closed session. We'll take a quick break here. You need me? We gotta go outside.